Hello students, welcome back to Dashadivige English grammar classes. We had started something with direct and indirect speech, and I had given you a few rules that you have to bear in mind while changing sentences from the direct to the indirect speech. Let's have a continuation of the same exercise. Do you all have your pens and papers ready with you, students? Shall we start? Okay, come on. Now the next sentence that we have here with us is, he said he is listening to the music. I repeat, he said he is listening to the music. Now tell me students, which is the reporting verb here? The reporting verb obviously is said. So said is the reporting verb. I shall just write it as are we. Are representing reporting and we standing for verb. Now said is the reporting verb which is in the past tense. So if you recall the rules, you know that if the reporting verb is in the past tense, then the entire sentence that is within the quotation marks will change from present tense to past tense, present continuous to past continuous, present perfect to past perfect, present perfect continuous to past perfect continuous, and past tense also to past perfect. Now, the next important thing that you should know is, see the tense of the sentence because the tense will change accordingly. Now, which is the auxiliary verb, students? It is. Is the auxiliary verb. We have done a lot of exercises regarding auxiliary verb and main verb when we discussed exercises relating to active and passive voice. Now what is the tense of is? This auxiliary verb indicates present tense and we have the word main verb listening. Now listening has ing added to it. So when you have ing added to a main verb, what does it indicate? It indicates that the tense is continuous and therefore this sentence, what has been given to us within the quotation marks, is in the present continuous tense. The reporting verb, as we already discussed, is in the past tense. So this particular sentence, when we change it into the indirect, also known as the reported speech, we have to take care to see that the present continuous tense is changed to past continuous tense. So how are you going to change this particular sentence into the reported speech or the indirect speech? Please remember, you are not going to make use of either the open inverted commas or the close inverted commas, question mark, exclamatory marks, no punctuation marks to be used other than a full stop. So let's go ahead and change this particular sentence into the indirect or the reported speech. He said that he was listening to the music. He said that he was listening to the music. Listening to the music. So we haven't used any other punctuation mark, right? We have only used the full stop and that is at the very end of the sentence. So he said that he was listening to the music. Was is past tense and we have retained the ing form, which means we have successfully changed it from the present continuous tense to the past continuous tense. Shall we move on to the next example, students? The next example that we have with us is, she said, I am not laughing. I repeat, she said, I am not laughing. Well, which is the reporting verb here? Again, it is said. So said is the reporting verb. And what is the tense of the reporting verb? It is in the past tense. Now, what is the sentence that has been given to us for changing from direct to indirect? The sentence is, I am not laughing. She said, I am not laughing. Now, how are you going to change this into the indirect speech? Now, please remember, students, what is the indirect speech also referred to? It is also referred to as the reported speech. So, indirect or reported speech. Now, why am I highlighting this particular fact? Because in your question paper, they might ask you to either change into the indirect speech or change into the reported speech. So, indirect and reported speech refer to one and the same. So, how are we going to change this into the indirect speech? If the reporting verb is in the past tense, then we have already discussed what are the changes that will happen regarding the tense of the sentence in the reported speech. I am not laughing. Now, am is the auxiliary verb. What is the tense of am? Obviously, it is in the present tense. Now, which is the main verb, students? We have done a lot of exercises where you have been able to identify the auxiliary verb and also the main verb. So, you know am is the auxiliary verb indicating present tense and laughing is the main verb and it is ending with the letters ing. So, what does ing refer to? It stands for the continuous tense. So, ing indicates that the tense is continuous. So, what's the spelling of continuous, students? Many students go wrong with the spelling of continuous. It is C-O-N-T-I-N-U-O-U-S. I repeat, the spelling of the word continuous is C-O-N-T-I-N-U-O-U-S. So, the entire sentence that is in the direct speech is in the present continuous tense. So, when you change it from the direct into the indirect or the reported speech, the tense will change from present continuous to past continuous. Come on, let's do this. She said that she was not laughing. She said that she was not laughing. So, am has been changed to past tense and laughing as ing. So, you have retained it in the continuous tense. So, present continuous, we have changed it successfully to past continuous and this is the right way of changing this particular sentence from the direct speech into the indirect speech. Students, do you all have your pen and paper with you? Are you all making a note of these examples that I give you? Yes? Continue to have the paper and pen with you and we shall discuss a few more sentences by which you will understand how you have to transform the sentences from the direct to the indirect. And you will definitely love to do the exercise once you gain a proper understanding of the concept. Shall we move on to the next example, students? So, the next example that we have here with us is, he said, I have been studying since 3 o'clock. I repeat, he said, I have been studying since 3 o'clock. Come on, tell me, which is the reporting verb, students? It is said. Said is the reporting verb. What is the tense of the reporting verb? It is in the past tense. Now, what is the sentence that has been given to us here? I have been studying since 3 o'clock. And you have, the word have. When we have been doing exercises relating to the active and passive voice, I remember distinctly, students, telling you that has and have indicate present perfect while had indicates past perfect. And I told you, if you remember only these three words, it's more than sufficient. Has and have is present perfect. Had is past perfect. Has refers to singular number while have refers to plural number. Has ಅನ್ನೋದು ಏಕವಚನ, have ಅನ್ನೋದು ಬಹುವಚನ. Has have ಎರಡು ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಪರ್ಫೆಕ್ಟ್ ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಸೂಚಿಸುತ್ತದೆ. Okay, so now if the reporting verb is in the past tense, then present perfect changes to past perfect. Now, which is the only word, children, that indicates past perfect? It is the word had. So, just by replacing have and using had instead of have, you will be changing it from present perfect to past perfect. Now, let's go ahead and convert this sentence from the direct speech into the indirect or the reported speech. Shall we do it, students? He said, I have been studying since 3 o'clock. It's very simple. I'm sure you already have the answer in mind. He said that, shall we write? He said that he had been studying since 3 o'clock. He said that he had been studying since 3 o'clock. So, I changes to he and have changes to had, because present perfect will obviously change to past perfect for the simple reason that said is in the past tense. The next example that we have here with us is, she said it has been raining for 3 days. I repeat, she said it has been raining for 3 days. Well, students, let's identify the reporting verb. Reporting verb is said. What does R stand here? R stands for reporting. And what does V stand for? It stands for verb. So, the reporting verb is in the past tense. Now, what is the sentence that has been given to us? The sentence is, it has been raining for 3 days. Well, students, identify the auxiliary verb for me. Which is the auxiliary verb? Yes, it is has. Has is the auxiliary verb. I have just written it as AUX with a full stop. So, it is auxiliary. What is the entire spelling of the word auxiliary? AUXILIARY. That is the spelling of the word auxiliary. But now I have just written it as AUX. AUX stands for auxiliary. Now, has is the auxiliary verb and it is also the present perfect. Which is the other word which indicates present perfect? Have. So, you have now the main verb. Which is the main verb? I have enclosed it within a rectangular box. Raining is the main verb. What is this main verb ending with? It is ending with ing. What does ing stand for? Ing stands for continuous tense. Ing stands for continuous tense. So, what is the tense of this entire sentence? It is in the present perfect continuous. So, auxiliary verb has indicating present perfect. So, since the reporting verb said is in the past tense, now what is the change that you will have to make in the tense of the reported speech? You will obviously be changing it from present perfect continuous to past perfect continuous. Which is the only word indicating past perfect? The only word which indicates past perfect is had. So, how are we going to change this into the indirect speech? You are going to change it to, she said that it had been raining for 3 days. The only change that you have made is you have changed has to had, which means you have changed it from present perfect to past perfect. Now, why did you change it from present perfect to past perfect? Who told you it has to be changed? That is because you have the reporting verb said, and said is in the past tense. Therefore, the entire sentence, when you change it into its respective indirect form or the reported speech, you are going to change it from present perfect to past perfect. Come on, let's write the sentence and I want you also to write it along with me. She said that It had been raining for 3 days. Please put a full stop, because in your lower classes you have learnt that a sentence should begin with a capital letter and it should end with a full stop if it is making a statement. So please see that the punctuation mark, which is the full stop, is clearly seen at the end of the sentence. Why? Because you're not going to make use of any other punctuation marks, right? I have told you many number of times that you're not going to make use of open inverted commas, close inverted commas, question mark, exclamatory mark. None of these punctuation marks you are allowed to use. The only punctuation mark that you must and should use is the full stop. And also remember, students, that the first word in the direct speech, now which is the first word? It is it. Now it, the first letter of the word it is I. So here in the direct speech, if you have noticed, it starts with the capital letter. Why? Because it has been raining for 3 days. It is the first word and the first letter of the first word must and should begin with a capital letter. But when you are changing it from direct to indirect, it does not become the first word of the sentence. Which is the first word of the sentence? She is the first word and S is the first letter of the first word. So only that you will have in the capital letter. But when it comes to it, you are not going to have I in the capital letter. Why? Because that is not the beginning of the sentence. What is the beginning of the sentence? She is the beginning of the sentence. And therefore only S must be in capital letter and not I of the word it. I hope you are understanding, students. Now, did you all write these examples? Do you have all these examples here with you? Please file those papers or maintain that book very carefully so that when you're preparing either for your midterm exam or your preparatory exams or your annual exams, you have all these papers with you, so it becomes easier for you to quickly browse through these papers and recall whatever has been discussed under the grammar of English language. Shall we move on to the next example, students? Are you all ready? Are you all with me? Mentally present? Yes? Okay, assuming that you are keeping your minds open, your ears open and eyes open, let's move on to the next example, students. The next example that we have here with us is, he said to me, you answered correctly. I repeat, he said to me, you answered correctly. Now, which is the reporting verb, students? By now, you should be able to understand that the reporting verb is none other than the word said. So, said is the reporting verb. And what is the tense of the reporting verb, students? It is in the past tense. Now, what is the sentence that has been given to us? The sentence says, you answered correctly. Now, do we have any auxiliary verb in the sentence which is within the inverted commas, students? Obviously not. The only word that you have indicating the verb is the word answered. So, answered is the verb and it ends with the letters ed. So, we have already discussed that if the verb ends with the letters ed, it indicates past tense. So, the whole sentence that has been given to us in the direct speech is in the simple past. Now, it is better that we have it as simple past rather than past simple. Okay. So, now when you are changing it from the direct speech into the indirect speech or into the reported speech, if you recall the rules that I have already discussed with you, students, if the sentence which is within the inverted commas, that is, if the direct speech is already in the past tense, then the tense will change from past tense to past perfect. So, here you have the verb answered. Answered ends with the letters ed indicating that it is already in the past tense. The sentence given to us is already in the past tense. So if the sentence given to us is in the past tense, then it changes to past perfect. Which is the only word that indicates past perfect? Obviously, it is the word had. So shall we change now this particular sentence from the direct to the indirect? What is the indirect speech also known as, students? It is known as the reported speech. Now, he said to me, you answered correctly. Now, what do you think you stand for? You actually is a reference to me. Yes? You stands for the word me. So, what do you think you would change to? You would not remain as you. Come on, think and tell me. I know you can't obviously tell me, but at least think and see how it is going to change, or what is the word that you are going to replace the word you with. So let's write it in the indirect speech. So you are going to change it into past perfect. Why are you changing it into past perfect? Because our answered is already in the past tense. So if the sentence given to us is already in the past tense, it has to change to past perfect. So he said to me that, now you is actually a reference to me, so that you is going to change to I. So he said to me that I, now which is the word which indicates past perfect? It is had. So he said to me that I had answered correctly, with a full stop. He said to me that I had answered correctly. You changes to I because you is a reference to me. You stands for the pronoun me, and this me is therefore going to change to I. If you remember, just some time back I told you that when you are changing it from direct to indirect, since he is going to be the beginning of the sentence, whatever you are changing from the direct to the indirect, the first word of the sentence in the indirect speech should not begin with a capital letter. Yes, but here, since you is going to change to I, always remember, students, I, when you write I without adding any other letter to it, it has to always be in capital letter. Because as a teacher, I've always been coming across this common mistake, and no matter how much we tell the students, they keep writing letter I in small letter. Letter I, if it is not along with any other letter, it has to be in the capital letter, whether it is the beginning of the sentence, whether it is the middle of the sentence, or whether it is the very end of the sentence. I, only I, should always be written in capital letter, which is why when I changed it from the direct to the indirect, if you can see, I have written I in capital letter. I have not written it in small letter. I repeat again, must be in the capital letter, whether it is written in the beginning of the sentence, or whether it comes in the middle of the sentence, or whether it is at the very end of the sentence. I must always be written in capital letter. So shall we move on to the next example, students? The next example that we have here with us, students, they said we were enjoying the weather. I repeat, they said we were enjoying the weather. So let's go about transforming this particular sentence from the direct to the indirect speech. Are you all ready? Do you have your pen and paper still with you, or is it flying elsewhere? Assuming that you have the paper and pen with you, students, let's go about changing this particular sentence from the direct to the indirect. Which is the reporting verb? Yes, it is said. Said is the reporting verb. What does R stand for? R stands for reporting. What does V stand for? Verb. So what is the tense of the reporting verb? It is in the past tense. Now, what is the sentence that has been given to us, students? We were enjoying the weather. Now, I want you to identify both verbs here. There is the auxiliary verb were and there is the main verb enjoying. So, this particular sentence has both the auxiliary verb as well as the main verb. Because if you remember, when we had discussions relating to active and passive students, I told you we have two kinds. Okay, one of the classifications of verbs is auxiliary verbs and main verb, right? So, there are sentences which could have only auxiliary verbs. There can be sentences which have only the main verbs. There can be sentences which can have both the auxiliary verb as well as the main verb. So, this particular sentence has both verbs here, the auxiliary verb as well as the main verb. So, were indicates the auxiliary verb. What is the spelling of auxiliary, students? I have just written it as AUX. Some time back I told you the spelling. Now, for the benefit of students who have not been a little attentive, let me tell you once again, students, the spelling of auxiliary is AUXILIARY, and here I have just written it as AUX. I hope you know the full spelling now. So, enjoying. Now, were indicates past tense, right? Was is also past tense, were is also past tense. Then was is singular in number while were is plural in number. Was ಅನ್ನೋದು ಏಕವಚನ, were ಅನ್ನೋದು ಬಹುವಚನ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ WERE ಅನ್ನೋ ವರ್ಡ್ ಬಂದಾಗ ನೀವು ಪ್ರನೌನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ, ಉಚ್ಚಾರಣೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕೇರ್ಫುಲ್ ಆಗಿರಬೇಕು. ನೀವು ವೇರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಬಾರ್ದು. ವೇರ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಅನ್ನೋ ಅರ್ಥ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಆವಾಗ ಸ್ಪೆಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ? WHERE. ಸೊ ನೀವು ವೇರ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ WHERE ಇರಬೇಕು. ಆದರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ WHERE ಇದೆಯಾ? ಇಲ್ಲ. ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ WERE. ಸೊ ಅದು ಉಚ್ಚಾರಣೆ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ನಾವು? WERE ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ವರ್ ಅಂತ ಪ್ರನೌನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. WHERE ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ವೇರ್ ಅಂತ ಪ್ರನೌನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಇದೊಂದು ಕಾಮನ್ ಮಿಸ್ಟೇಕ್. ಆ್ಯಸ್ ಅ ಟೀಚರ್ ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಕಮ್ ಅಕ್ರಾಸ್ ದಿಸ್ ಮಿಸ್ಟೇಕ್ ಕಮಿಟೆಡ್ ಬೈ ದ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್. They keep saying were instead of saying were. So please kindly pay attention to the fact that WERE is to be pronounced as were. What is WHERE, students? That is to be pronounced as where. Where ಅನ್ನೋದು ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಅನ್ನೋ ಅರ್ಥ ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ. Okay? So now that we have discussed regarding the pronunciation of this word, shall we move on to how we can change this particular sentence from the direct to the indirect? Are you all ready, students? Okay. So said, as I said already, it is the reporting verb which is in the past tense. Were is the auxiliary verb indicating again the past tense, and enjoying is the main verb. So I enclose it within a rectangular box. Enjoying is the main verb. What is added to the main verb? There is ing added to the main verb. What does that indicate? Continuous tense. CONTINUOUS. Okay. So what is the tense of the sentence, students? It is in past continuous. So the tense of the whole sentence that has been given to us in the direct speech is in past continuous. So recall the rules, students. We have already discussed the rules, right? So if the sentence which is already there in the direct speech, then the tense is already in the past tense, right? So if it is already in the past tense, it has to change to past perfect, right? So how are we going to change this? It is going to change to they said that. Now, how are you going to change this particular sentence? What is going to be how are you going to start the indirect speech? It is started with they said that, right? So here W is in capital letter. Are you going to have it in capital letter now? No. You're going to change the W from capital letter to small letter. Why? Because it is not the beginning of the sentence. What is the beginning of the sentence here? It is they. Therefore, T is in capital letter. So, they said that they had been enjoying the weather. Now, I have changed we to they. So, they said that they had been enjoying the weather. Okay. So, past tense is changed to past perfect. Had indicates past perfect. So, I have changed it properly from the direct to the indirect speech. So, what is the sentence in the indirect speech, children? It says, they said that they had been enjoying the weather. There is a full stop. You have to put a full stop at the end of the sentence. Shall we move on to the next example?